hug, get your last hug. All right. All right. All right. We are ready. Yeah, we are ready. Yeah, you can say something. Hold on one second. All right. So, wow, I didn't know you needed that hug like that, but okay. This is Reverend Jacqueline Edwards. And she's from California, and she's in the house visiting us today. So please make sure you show her some love after the service. I think she wants to say something. You want to say something?
I do. You know, in part because I'm a preacher, and that's what we do is we talk. But I want to say just how absolutely delightful it is to stand in this place and look at that place out there. And I want to tell you that I bring you love from my place, which is First Church of Religious Science by Yale, as well as from Reverend Andre Ett's place, which is, it'll come in a minute, it'll come back, and from First Church of Religious Science in Oakland, just the West Coast, the left coast. I'm just bringing some love from the left coast and saying how sweet it is to be here on the East Coast in this place. And I'm grateful to have a place to come when I come back. Ashe, amen, and so it is.
There you go. 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. All right. So this morning, let's get started. We are talking about trust. And our theme for the month is trust the action. And the principles that we are working with this morning, we believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. So, we talk a lot about this law of attraction. And in the word attraction is action. So, attraction requires action. And it is our action that causes attraction. And your inaction is a distraction. Your inaction is a distraction. We also say here a lot that life is for you, that nothing is against you, and that all things are working together for your good. That's what we believe. And so, the action then, our Christian brothers and sisters might say something like this: we've got a lot of stones to roll away. What we say is treat and move your feet. Sometimes you might have heard Reverend Michael Beckwith say something like this. In terms of talking about creating, he'll say something about the seed and the soil, and that the demonstration will be made when the conditions are right. Well, who do you think is going to make the conditions right? You. That's right. You and I, we are the ones who make the conditions right. And so that requires some action on our part, some rolling away of the stones, treating and moving our feet. And so if you are going to attract to you the things that you desire through the use of the law, through the use of the law of mind, which for us is, in our teaching, what we are talking about then is our thinking. Our teaching deals with our thoughts. And not just our thoughts, but our ability to become aware of the thoughts that we are thinking, and then choosing, if we so desire to change our thought to have a different experience in our life. So what we say here then is that if you change your thinking, you will change your life. Not that you can change your life, but if you change your thinking, you will change your life. And so not only do you have to become aware of your thoughts, as I said earlier, that you are thinking, and then choose to think another thought, a higher thought for a lesser thought, you've got to take action right where you are. And so we say then that around us, there's a divine power and presence, and as Callista read, she read about a substance being around us. Divine power and presence, and this substance that's available to us, that's always available to us, that we know not of. This substance that we can't see, this invisible substance, and yet it's there. And so it's likened to this. We know that electricity exists. We know that. And we know that if we walk over to the light switch and turn the light on, that space will become lighted up. But if we just sat where we were and didn't get up to go over to switch to flip the switch on, we wouldn't have any light. The action. There's some action required if you are going to change your life. So I just want to read just a little bit from Ernest Holmes today. I'm reading from Living the Science of Mind, chapter titled Your Spiritual Bank Account. He says, life has enough of everything to spare. It contains love and faith and peace of mind and joy. Would it not be wonderful if we could build up a spiritual bank account and hold it in reserve, an account which we know would be sufficient to meet any emergency in our lives? For we are always being called on to meet emergencies. Times when we need more love and tolerance, more kindness and understanding, a deeper faith and a higher hope. These are all the real cries in our lives. And at such times, unless we have a vast amount of good stored up, we not only become impoverished, but we sometimes become destitute of hope. And then despair takes place of hope, and fear takes place of faith. This is what we want to avoid. He goes on to say, here is one of the great secrets of nature. The person who has taken the time to harmonize himself or herself with love will find that when some incident that seems hateful or discordant arises in his or her experience, he can draw on a reserve force which he now has. He or she can actually apply this to the situation when it arises. If you have accumulated a certain amount of love and then meet some situation where discord and strife seem to enter, get quiet inside yourself and say, I am bringing love to bear on this situation, a love which comprehends and includes everything, a love which has no hurt in it, a love which is not afraid, a love which is calm and confident and sure of itself. He says then, let us see if we can draw upon the great reservoir of faith, which comes only through implicit, complete surrender of all fears, whether they be big or little. Faith is natural, fear is unnatural. Faith is positive, fear is negative. Faith is affirmative, fear is a denial of life. And we need a great deal of faith if we are going to meet all the fears and uncertainties that we are sure to encounter. Only a little faith cannot do this, just as we cannot pay a $1,000 debt with $500. So it is impossible to meet a trying circumstance unless we have sufficient faith to cover all the fear. As a matter of fact, we have as much faith as we use. We have as much faith as we believe. One more minute. He calls this practicing the presence of God. Coming to know that we are in partnership with the original banker, the one who made the bank of life, but the one who, in a certain sense, must wait for us to join in this divine partnership. He says there is a power that honors our faith. There is a love that meets love with love, a law that meets faith with faith, and good with good. We did not create this law, this power, this divine presence. We had no more to do with it than we did with the creation of the north wind or the North Star. It was there before we recognized it. It would be there if we had no existence. But it does not seem to be there until we believe in it and use it. Let us then be certain that we open our account with this great bank of life. For here and here alone is the real substance that we can draw upon to purchase every good and beautiful thing that life has in store for us. Here alone are peace and joy and certainty. Here alone is freedom from fear and doubt. Deliberately close all your accounts with the lesser banks, throw away the old checkbooks and forget them, and learn to turn daily to the one and only supreme source, which is God. We're talking about moving stones. Turn to your neighbor and say, she didn't say a pebble, she said a stone. Stone. We're talking about moving stones, not pebbles. And so, in the story, in the Bible, there's a story about this stone being moved by Mary. And so Mary and Martha are sisters, and they have a brother, Lazarus. And Lazarus dies, and he's in the tomb. And then Jesus comes because he's familiar with the family. Mary and Jesus, they connected. They are one. So Jesus shows up on the scene, and he's like, what's up? And Mary goes, well, Lazarus, he died. And so Jesus goes and he does what he does. And then he goes back to Mary and he says, now go and move the stone. But Lazarus had been in the tomb, as the story goes, for 4 days. And so in the story then, they say then, when someone's in a tomb for 4 days, they start to smell a little bit. There's a little bit of an odor. So your stones might be a little bit smelly. You might not really want to get real close to them. But there's a power and a presence that is available to you to move stones and not pebbles. We have to know that we are connected to our source, as I talked about with the light. We know that the source exists, that it will work for us, for all of us alike. It doesn't matter who goes over to the light and flips the switch on. The light will come on. It works for us. And so then what we have to get to then is that, or make sure then, is that We're not waiting on anyone to turn the light switch on for us. You can't wait for anybody to turn the light switch on for you, especially if you're in the dark. You can't wait for anybody to turn the light switch on for you. If your life is not changing, in other words, the way that you desire it to change, and you believe, as I believe, that there's a source and a substance that's available to us, that's always available to us, then perhaps you have to sit with yourself, or I have to sit with myself, and to see whether or not I've switched the light switch on, whether or not I'm connected, you see? So, that might translate into something like us saying to ourselves, well, what is wrong with me that I can't turn the light switch on? What is so wrong with me that I can't turn the light switch on? Or we have to check, as I said, to see if we are waiting for someone else to turn the light switch on. And then we start saying stuff like, well, what's wrong with him? Why can't he turn the light switch on for me? That kind of stuff starts happening. So we're wondering why we won't take action. And in our sitting with that idea, and then we start to harbor guilt, blindly sometimes unaware and unconscious that we are harboring guilt, or we start to condemn ourselves, engage in self-condemnation, because there, for some of us then, is a real sense of failure, that we didn't flip the light switch on, that we fell somehow, which leads to anxiety, which leads to desperation, and anybody that's desperate seeks. We're not here affirming and reminding you to seek anything. That's out of desperation. But the invitation is to discover. Not to seek, but to discover, because if you are seeking, you will find it. If you are seeking, you will find it. Guilty about some of the decisions we've made, you and I, we are condemning ourselves because we can't figure out how to fix something. Or we can't figure out how to fix somebody. I said, condemning ourselves because we can't figure out how to fix somebody, or fix ourselves, or how to fix somebody, or how to fix somebody else's life. You've got to move your own stones first, you see. Turn your own light on, you see, so that you can see, so that you can be available, so that you can be a source, so that the substance can flow through you, so that for your own self and for others. The good news is that it doesn't matter how many times we found ourselves dancing with anxiety or desperation, seeking. We don't have to continue living that way. That's the good news. That's what the science of mind teaches in changing your life, changing your thinking and changing your life, because the source is always available. The electricity is always available. We've just got to go turn on the light. You and I take some action in our lives. It's more than just saying a prayer. It's more than just announcing some words. There's some action that's required. It's the word, the feeling, and action. The word, the feeling, and action. And so we've got to stop limiting ourselves, trying to control situations and circumstances. In other words, thinking that if I do this, then that should happen. Or if I have this, then that. Controlling the situation. But what life offers us is an opportunity to begin to forgive ourselves, to forgive our past mistakes, or to be willing to look at what I didn't do and to choose in this moment to be willing to do something new, to do something different, to take some action, not just to pray and then to just stand in quiet repose. No, it's prayer plus the feeling, or the word plus the feeling, and action creates. It demonstrates. So make sure that you're taking action, and that your action is not a way